Are you ready? Let's get started. Number 1. Philippines is located along the Pacific Ring of Fire. Excellent! The correct answer is true. The Ring of Fire refers to the region around the Pacific Ocean that is commonly hit by earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. Some of the countries in the Pacific Ring of Fire are Japan, Indonesia, and the Philippines. Number 2. Earthquakes are not associated with faults. You are right! The statement is false. Earthquakes occur when rocks along a fault suddenly move. Number 3. A fault is a break in the Earth's crust, and along the break, no movement has taken place. Correct! That is false. It is true that the fault is a break in the Earth's crust, and along the break, significant movement has taken place. But how do faults produce quakes? We will learn that later. Number 4. Energy from inside the Earth exerts a force on the rocks. That's right! Energy from inside the Earth exerts a force on the rocks along faults. This energy from inside the Earth makes the rocks bend. Using a model later, we will see how this happens. Number 5. When a portion of the land sinks, a mountain is formed. That's right! The statement is false. Mountain is a large mass of land that rises above the ground, while the valley is a lower part of the land between two higher parts, which might be mountains or hills. Did you get the correct answer? Then you are doing great! Earthquake is used to describe the sudden shaking and trembling caused by the sudden release of energy from inside the earth. Try to look at these pictures. What do you see? Why do we need to learn earthquakes? Strong earthquakes have caused countless deaths all over the world, and no one can stop quakes from happening. No wonder scientists have been working very hard to find a way to predict when an earthquake occurs. The study of an earthquake is called seismology. The scientists who study earthquakes are called seismologists. In the Philippines, the national agency concerned in monitoring the earthquakes and fault movements is the PHIVOLCS, or the Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology. There are things that people can do to avoid or reduce the loss of life and damage to property. The first step is to have a clear understanding of the occurrence of the earthquakes. Now, let us watch this news clip and try to think carefully about it.
Bayan, noong nakaraang Abril ay niyanig ng magnitude 7.8 na lindol ang Nepal na kumitil naman o pamatay sa may libo-libong katao din. Sa pinakahuli po, umabot na ng mahigit 8,000. Kaya nangangamba na ngayon ang PHIVOLCS na baka maging ang Metro Manila at ilang katabing probinsya ay makaranas na rin ng malakas na lindol dahil nga po sa Valley Fault System. Ano-ano nga ba ang mga lugar na mapipinsala ng tinatawag na The Big One? Yan ang pinatrol ng KSP, Kabayan Special Patrol. Niyanig ng isang 7.8 magnitude na lindol ang Nepal noong nakaraang Abril 25 na sinundan naman ng isang magnitude 7.2 na lindol noong 12 ng Mayo. Dahil dito, nagpaalala muli ang Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology o PHIVOLCS na anumang oras ay maaring yanigin ng isang magnitude 7.2 na lindol ang Luzon dahil hinog na nga ang West Valley Fault. Ang 100 kilometrong haba ng West Valley Fault ay dadaan sa Bulacan, Rizal, Quezon City, Marikina, Pasig, Makati, Taguig, Muntinlupa, Cavite, at Laguna. 84 na barangay mula sa mga syudad at probinsyang ito ay nanganganib yanigin ng isang malakas na lindol. Noong 2012 ay sinadya ng grupo ng KSP ang mga barangay na dinadaanan ng West Valley Fault sa Quezon City. Nag-umpisa ang fault line sa barangay Bagong Silangan. Tatamaan dito ang PhilInvest 2 subdivision. Magtutuloy naman ang West Valley Fault line sa may Batasan Hills kung saan maraming kabahayan ang nakatayo sa danger zone. Diretso sa Pansol ang fault line, natutuloy naman sa Libis kung saan maraming matataas na gusali sa lugar. Tuloy-tuloy ang fault line sa Blue Ridge kung saan naglagay ng mga muhon o markers para malaman kung saan dadaan ang fault line. Dadaan din sa White Plains ang fault line pero bakanting lote lamang ang tatamaan sa subdivision. Tuloy-tuloy ang fault line sa Bagong Bayan at Ugong Norte sa Quezon City. Sa nagbabadyang panganib na maaari nating harapin kung sakaling yanigin tayo ng isang malakas na lindol, napakahalaga pa rin ang lubos na pag-iingat at paghahanda. Iyon ay kung meron po tayong paghahanda at hindi lamang po ang West Valley Fault ang kailangang paghandaan kundi pati na rin ang 10 kilometrong East Valley Fault diyan po sa may Rizal kung saan nga 12 barangay sa Rodriguez, Rizal at San Mateo ang maaring tamaan po ng magnitude 6.2 na lindol.
What would you feel if you are living in these areas? An earthquake is one of the most frightening things that anyone can ever experience. You grow up believing that the earth is rock solid and steady. But then, the ground suddenly shakes and you do not know what to believe anymore. Earthquakes are associated with faults. When a fault suddenly moves, an earthquake occurs. Do you know what a fault is? Let us perform this activity, a faulty setup. In this activity, we will be needing 2 sheets of cardboard, fine sand, ruler, sheets of paper, or newspaper. The first thing that we need to do is to spread the sheet of paper on a table. Then, arrange the 2 sheets of cardboard edge to edge. Pour sand along the boundary of the 2 sheets. With a ruler, flatten the top of the sand and make 2 parallel lines. Now, move the sheets slowly in the opposite direction. Now, let us try to answer these questions. As you move the sheets, what is formed in the sand? A crack is formed in the sand, or we can also say that a break is formed in the sand. What happens to the lines? We can see that the lines moved. It is shifted or displaced. Try to look at this picture carefully. Maybe you are thinking that the road was originally in one piece, but the road is no longer continuous. There is a cut across the road and now there are 2 sections. One section has moved with respect to the other. Compare what you see in the picture and what you saw in the activity. Is there something in the picture that looks like what was formed in the activity? Do you see anything similar? Based on the activity and the picture, you can probably guess what a fault is by now. Fault is a break or a fracture in the Earth's crust, and along the break, significant movement has taken place. The word break refers to a crack in the ground. The word crust refers to the outermost layer of the Earth. We live on the surface of the crust. Significant movement means the rocks have been displaced or shifted considerably. This time, get a box and cut it in the middle. Place one box over the other one. Put sand in the nested boxes. Shake the box side to side so that the surface of the sand will become level. Now, we will slowly pull the sides of the boxes and observe. We can see that the two parallel cracks formed in the sand. Let us continue to pull the box cover and observe. The sand in the middle of the cracks subsides or moves down, forming a depression. This simulates what happens when the ground is pulled apart by forces within the Earth. Faults form. A portion of the land sinks and a valley is formed. Now, let us reassemble the box covers as before. Do not forget to make the surface of the sand flat. This time, let us push the sides of the box covers toward each other and observe what happens. As we can see, the opposite happens. Instead of the sand sinking, the sand forms a tiny ridge. Unfortunately, this model does not show a crack in the sand that would represent a fault. In the real world, a fault is formed when the ground is squeezed by forces from inside the Earth. A portion of the land is pushed up, and mountains are formed. There are three types of faults: the normal fault, the reverse fault, and the strike-slip fault. In the normal fault, the rock layers in the Earth's crust are pulled apart, and gravity causes one section to move downward in relation to the other. While in the reverse fault, the rock layers in the Earth's crust are squeezed together, and the force pushes one section upward about the other. Then, the strike-slip fault forms when the rock layers on the opposite sides of the faults slide past each other horizontally. But how do faults produce quakes? Now that you have an idea of how faults look, let us learn how earthquakes occur along faults. Let's do another activity. Stick and slip. This will show us how earthquakes are related to faults. In this activity, two small boxes are needed. The cartons that fruit juice drinks are packaged in are perfect: Scotch tape or masking tape, rubber band, and a paper clip. You can also try this at home. Let's start. First, attach the rubber band to the paper clip. Then, attach the paper clip to one end of one box. Place the boxes side by side. Lightly tape the two boxes together. Then put a toy house on the box with the rubber band. Remember, do not stick the tape on the boxes too much. The tape is meant to come off. Then third, hold the box without the rubber band in place. With your other hand, slowly pull on the rubber band. The rubber band should be pulled forward and horizontally, not sideways, upward, or downward. It is expected that the box will not move at first because it is taped to the other box. Question: what happens to the rubber band? You are correct. The rubber band stretches. Now, keep on pulling on the rubber band. Question: what happens to the box attached to the rubber band? Right, the box jerks forward. What about the house? What happens to the house? You're correct. The house falls over. Which is fault in this setup? If you think that the fault in this setup is the boundary between the two boxes, then you are correct. As the box jerks forward, this simulates the sudden movement that occurs along a fault. In this activity, the tape represents friction in real life. Do you still remember what friction is? You are right! Friction is the resistance to motion of one object moving relative to another. If the tape is too sticky, it will never come off no matter how much rubber band is pulled. But since we tape it on just enough, then the box jerks free from the tape as we pull the rubber band. Imagine the boxes as the ground and the boundary between them as fault. In real-world terms, this is what happens. Energy from inside the earth exerts a force on the rocks along faults. But the rocks do not move right away because of friction. The roughness of the rocks keeps them from slipping past each other. But when the limit is reached, the rocks suddenly slip and an earthquake occurs. Some scientists describe this process as a stick and slip. At first, the rocks are stuck together due to friction. Later, the rocks suddenly slip, generating an earthquake. Every time a fault slips, the earth quakes. In our activity, there was a sudden jerk, but no shaking. The boxes did not shake as in a real earthquake. Can you make your fault model? If so, what materials will you use? Can you also demonstrate to us your fault model? Although major earthquakes can kill thousands of people and can cost a lot of money for damage to repair, earthquakes can also have positive benefits for humans. It helps us to understand nature. It also allows scientists to study the Earth's inner layer. And understanding earthquakes helps us to prepare and respond to such devastating events. If we have a clear understanding of the occurrence of the earthquakes, we can avoid or reduce the loss of life and damage to property. Let us have a self-check. Try to answer the following questions. Grab a paper and a pen, then write down your answer. You may pause the video if you need more time. Number 1. It is described as the sudden shaking and trembling caused by the sudden release of energy from inside the earth. A. Fault. B. Friction. C. Earthquake. D. Seismology. Number 2. Which type of fault is this? A. Reverse. B. Normal. C. Strike slip. D. Stick and slip. Number 3. The study of earthquakes. A. Fault. B. Earthquake. C. Seismology. D. Friction. Number 4. Earthquakes happen along a fault line. Which of the following is not true about faults? A. It can be found in the land. B. It is where fault cyclone starts. C. It is the break in the Earth's crust. D. None of the above. Number 5. This is the process refers to the fast movement between two sides of a fault wherein the friction is overcome, resulting in a sudden movement or shaking of the ground. A. Stick and shake. B. Stick and bend. C. Stick and vibrate. D. Stick and slip. Number 6. Earthquakes are common occurrence in Japan, Indonesia, and in the Philippines. Why is this so? A. They are located near the equator. B. They are considered archipelagic countries. C. They are found within the Pacific Ring of Fire. And D. They are surrounded by seas. Number 7. What will most likely happen every time a fault slips? A. There will be no movement at all. B. The rocks will suddenly slip and will generate an earthquake. C. The rocks will be stuck together. D. There will be movement right away. Number 8. What Philippine agency is concerned about monitoring fault movement? A. Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology or PHIVOLCS. B. Philippine Atmospheric Geophysical and Astronomical Services Administration or PAGASA. C. Department of Labor and Employment or DOLE. D. Department of Environment and Natural Resources or DENR. Number 9. Energy from inside the earth makes the ground move. Which of the following is the reason why there is no movement right away? A. Friction causes a delay in the movement of the ground. B. The rapid release of energy causes a delay in the movement of the ground. C. There is no movement right away because of the vibration of the rocks. D. There is no movement right away because of the bending of the rocks. Number 10. Which factor keeps the rocks from slipping past each other? A. The depth of the rocks. B. The roughness of the rock. C. The arrangement of rocks. D. The bending of the rocks. Now, let us check your answers. Congratulations! I am sure that you've learned something new today. Thank you for watching!